Hello and welcome to the Quest for Games. I'm Jerry, and in this video we're going to go through the 1 to 4 player game Dice Thrones Adventures. So what is Dice Thrones Adventures? Dice Thrones Adventures is what we refer to as a dungeon crawl. There will be tiles that you'll lay out based on layout. You'll use the characters that we have from the other video that I did on how to play Dice Thrones. You'll have to have these character packs. So you have to have as many people as you want to play with have to have a character pack. So 4-player game, you're going to need at least 2 of the 2-player packs or a battle chest or something like that. Back to it's a dungeon crawl. So you're going to walk through rooms, flipping over tiles, doing encounters in the rooms, and trying to find 3 shards. Those 3 shards, portal shards, are going to complete the portal. And then that will take you from the dungeon crawl to a boss fight. And you'll do that 4 times. So a scenario where there's a portal crawl and then a boss fight and a portal crawl and a boss fight 4 times. This is a Kickstarter, so you may see some things that didn't come in your retail version of the game. But I'm pretty sure the only thing that I got from the Kickstarter is some promo cards. With that being said, this is a Kickstarter. I bought it. I am not being paid for this video. There's no sponsors for this. I will turn on the Klingon sub channel so that mistakes that I've made that people have pointed out, I can put that in there. And so if you have Klingon turned on, you'll see the closed caption of those mistakes coming up on screen. So in this video, I found that it was too long to do the normal teach that I do in one video. So I've split it up into basically 3 videos. There's the first portal crawl one, then there's the boss fight, and then you'll get final thoughts. At the end of this video, you'll see some final thoughts, but I'm going to do the normal final thoughts, a longer one, as a separate video that I'm just going to title Final Thoughts. This video is the portal crawl. So let's get it to the table and start to teach. So let's talk about the anatomy of a setup card or the portal crawl cards. First scenario, so these have a 1 on them for scenario 1. The first scenario cards are always going to be a portal crawl. You'll see that when you get to scenario 2 cards, they're always a boss fight. And 3's, again, a portal crawl, right? Because that's the way you work through the game. For the portal crawl, you have a couple of things you have to do during setup, and I'll talk about these. We'll go through and actually walk through a setup, but I just want to get you used to what the card looks like, because I won't be able to be zoomed into the card like this when I'm actually doing the setup. So here's the hero setup section that tells you what to do with the heroes. Here's the section that tells you how to lay out the portal and how to lay out your dungeon room cards. This tells you what a salve does. This one, it's receive 3 health plus 1 for each portal shard that you've already collected, or revive 1 down hero with 1 health. I'll talk about this some more too, but there's King's Hand tokens, the King's Hand status effect. That's right here. That'll be something that happens with minions and then on a boss fight. But this one, it's going to be the higher level minions. And then the conclusion. So upon defeat, this is what you do. Upon victory, that's what you do. So that's the anatomy of a portal crawl scenario card. Let's go to set up our first scenario for the portal crawl scenario of a Dice Thrones adventure. So I had picked and talked about the setup card that was chosen, and I'm going to put it here in the corner. Hopefully it won't get in our way and we'll still be able to use it, but we'll see. We have our Crimson Sand starting spot, and we have the portal card, which you can see is set up like that right here. And I have to put a salve on there. Then I need to put a level 1 tile right next to that one. And then 1 up, couple over, 1 down, and 1 next to that. Then I need to move into the level 2. So we'll have to set up a level 2 there and 1 there. And I'll have to set up level 2s across the bottom of this. Then I need one level 3. So we'll put the level 3 right there. So that has the tiles down. I have to put a portal shard on these two and this one. I have to put a salve on this one and on this one. We have a level 1 treasure chest here. By the way, in case I didn't say it, these things came with these nice trays that have all this has got all the tokens in it. There's a tray that has all the cards in it that I need to set things up. So, and level 1s, just in case you're looking, a level 1 on its backside is a level 2. I need a level 2 here, and I need a level 2 here. Setting up for a 2-player game. Okay, we'll start with 2 shared salves, and we have to set the gold dial to 10. And since it's a 2-player game that we're setting up for, the characters are going to have to they're going to have 18, and I'm going to use the gunslinger and the barbarian for the 2 characters. So let's transition over to setting up the characters. But the player's character setup is exactly the same as Dice Throne's character setup. The only difference is that they will only get 18 health instead of 50. So to finish setup, you need to get your hero board set up. I've set up the gunslinger and the barbarian for a 2-player game. I get a new dice. There's a different dice, the loot dice. I have set the health to only 18. They still have 2 CP, but they both only have 18 health. Unfortunately, the player pamphlets are off to the side and aren't really on camera. So I'm probably going to just slide one of the 2 of these out of the way and work on just the one to talk about how the game actually plays. But the other things we have to do for setup, I talked about the 2 shared salves. They have 10 gold. These are a health tracker and a combat point tracker for minions. And here's 5 chaos dice that the minions will be using to set up the minions. And then to figure out who goes first, both characters will roll the loot dice, and whoever wins that roll, which 16 to 12, so the gunslinger won, and the gunslinger will go first. And with that, we have setup completed and we're ready to start playing. Last thing we need to do in setup is you'll see that I have a normal scenario card here, which is worth 20 points. We will set up this card. It'll have the name of your group, the level, score, which is 20, the players who are playing and what characters they're playing. And for the first one, it's all set up here. Once you finish, you'll start filling out the rest of this. This particular card is what came in the box, but there's a URL down here that you can go to that'll allow you to print out a printed version of the campaign scoring sheet. And that's what we use to write on, and we've kept this one clean. All right, so let's talk about turn order. In the beginning of the game, which is what I'm set up for right now, we had decided that the gunslinger was going to go first. Gunslinger is going to go take their turn. I have the turn order card that I placed right there. Hopefully you can see that well. So first thing that would happen, it's gunslinger's turn. The gunslinger would spend a salve if they need to. If you look at the setup card that we had set up earlier, you would have seen that the salve, you get 3 health plus 1 for each portal shard that we've collected. Right now we haven't collected any portal shards. Then the next thing that the gunslinger could do is move. And let's say they're going to move to here, which means that automatically causes them to do a reveal or an explore. So when they do the explore, they flip over this tile, and that tile says I need to pull a level 1 minion. So there's a level 1 minion. It says I need to add 1 gold to their gold tracker, so they're now at 11. They started at 10. And then there's a condition at the bottom of this card that says I could spend one of my saves, or I have to roll a dice and take my luck or take chances at what I get based on the dice roll. I rolled a 5. Oh, sorry. I'm going to do the dice roll because I don't want to spend the salve yet. I rolled a 5. What a 5 says is I've already gained a loot chest. So I gain a green loot chest. Well, there's this loot board that's in the box. It says loot on the top on this side. It says boss on the other side. You want to use the side that says loot. It's a green chest, so I use this one. I take my loot dice and I roll my loot dice and I roll a 17. So a 17 means we get 3 more gold. So I would put 3 more gold. So we're now at 14 gold. I put 3 more gold on the tracker. If I would have rolled an 18, a 19, or a 20, I would have gotten a card. Let's talk about the cards real quick while I have this and we're talking about this. If I would have got a card, let's say I got a green card, I pulled a green card out of the deck from the green tab, and I place it underneath my board like this, in this spot. I don't look at it. I have no idea what it was. I placed it here because this is where you place the green cards. The green are common. The blue are rare. And they go underneath here. You would put the blue cards right here, tuck it underneath this spot. The purple are exotic and the gold are legendary. And you would put them underneath each one of these places on your board, under your player board. And you're doing that to remember this was a green, this was a blue, this was a purple, this was a gold. It'll be important at the end when we're all done and we go into how we deal with the loot. But for right now, you don't get to see those cards. You have no idea what they are, and you don't put them in your hand. You don't get to use them. Okay, let's talk about the anatomy of the Portal Crawls Dungeon Room cards. You can see this is a level 1 card because it's got a 1 on its back. On the other side of it, you can see that its name is Scorched Desert. You get 1 gold for the group because of this. You have to bring out a level 1 minion. And then when this card's flipped over, any hero can discard the salve, or they can roll a single 6-sided dice. And on a 1 or a 2, they have to take a burn and discard 1 card. A 3 or a 4, they have to receive 6 undefendable damage. And remember, that's avoidable, though. And on a 5 or a 6, they gain a level 1 chest. The only other thing that I'm aware of is you can also see this one. It says that the hero gains 1 CP. There's one of 4 things that can happen on the card. You get a gold, you get CP, a minion can come out, and some action happens based on the text on the card. The anatomy of a level 2 is pretty much the same, but it has a level 2 monster on it. This particular one gives the hero 2 combat points. And then there are level 3 cards, puts out a level 3 minion. Still has CP, or some of them have gold on them, just like the level 1s. There are 2 other types of portal crawl tiles that you can see when you're putting the map together. The Crimson Sands is where you always start, and it's the same on both sides. This is the portal tracking card, and you put your portal pieces on here, and once you get the 3 of them, you have the portal unlocked and you're ready to move on to the boss fight. Okay, so let's look at the anatomy of a minion card and the minion setup. When you are told to pull out a minion, you'll look at the back of the minion cards, and that will tell you that you're supposed to set up, let's say, a level 1 minion. The back of the level 1s will look like this. 2s are the same, just have a 2 on them, and so forth, right? So you'll pull out a minion card and you'll reveal it. And what the minion card's going to tell you is there's the name of the minion. The level of the minion is also right there. This minion has 10 health. So you'll take one health dial and you'll set it to 10. And then the combat points for this minion is 2. So you'll take another one of the dials that are out there and use the combat point side of it and set their combat points to 2. And I'll zoom out here in a little bit so you can see what those look like. I'm trying to get a good view of the card. It's a serpent sorcery. It uses serpent sorcery. It has a roll objective, which you can see down here, which is also the same as here. So when you roll the dice, you'll be rolling 5 dice. That's the objective that they're trying to get to. So if I were to roll some dice, I would see, oh, there's one of these and there's one of these. That's my roll objective. So I'm going to take those and I'm going to roll again. Sorry, those rolled off. So I rolled that one, so I would stop rolling at this point. And I can look down and say, okay, what can I get for the dice that I rolled? So I rolled that, so I successfully did the serpent sorcery. So I rolled 1 dice, and that 1 dice gave me the 3 slashes. So I rolled slashes, so I get this character would gain 2 chaos, so I'd put 2 chaos on there. And then it says, then I deal 6 defendable plus 1 defendable damage per chaos. So 6, 7, 8 damage. So this character is going to do 8 damage to whoever is fighting it at this time. On their defense, when they're defending against a hero's attack, they do the same thing. They have a 3 dice. This one has 3 dice that it can roll. You'll roll the dice, and based on what you rolled, you would, in this case, I don't gain any chaos because I didn't roll the star thing, because there are already 2 chaos on here from when, let's say, when it took its turn, then it would do 1 damage back, so 2 damage back for that chaos. And I'm going to zoom out here for a second just to show you the health thing that says 10, and there's the combat points that says 2. We'll go over a full minion's turn here in a little bit. I was mainly trying to show this is what you're trying to roll for, and that's how you roll defense. It shows you on this card. The rewards for beating this minion is a level 1 loot chest. So this particular character has another thing on it that's called the King's Hand. If you try to roll for their ability, and let's just say this was my final roll, I didn't do the Venomous Strike. So since I didn't do the Venomous Strike, you would take the rest of the minion's turn. So if it had effects on it that would happen regularly during its turn, you would go through all those. And then at the end, when you would normally be done and say, okay, I'm going to pass turn to a hero, instead of passing turn to a hero, since nothing got activated, you would take this token off and you would roll 1 dice to see what would happen. Based on the scenario card that of the portal crawl that you're running, it will tell you that what happens when you take the King's Hand token off. So for this particular one, you would start by showing the token on there. Max tokens allowed on the character per turn is 1, and then you'd have to roll a 4 through 6 for it to be successful. If I had rolled a 4 through 6, then this minion would get a full second turn. The other thing that the King's Hand can do for them is if I was targeting this minion and I had pulled off my ultimate, well, it could spend the King's token, or it would spend the King's token because I pulled off my ultimate and roll, and based on that scenario of a 5 or a 6, they would force you to re-roll one of your dice. So you pulled off your ultimate, the King's Hand comes off, you rolled, I rolled a 5. In this particular case, you would have to re-roll one of your dice. If I had rolled like a 3, I didn't succeed, the ultimate would hit them. There's various and multiple scenarios that you could do there. If you tipped the dice after you re-rolled it and it didn't come out to be a 6, you could tip it back to a 6 if you had the right cards and enough combat points. You could do all of that manipulation after the fact too. So another thing that's on the card is this one has a passive. Just like players have passive abilities, this particular minion has a passive ability. Its passive ability is that at the end of their turn, the minion's turn, the player would take 1 undefendable damage per each negative status effect that's on the hero that's attacking the Emperor's Cobra here. And the last thing that I need to talk about that's on the cards is this first strike. If the card has a first strike on it, when you go, you're in the same room as a minion and it's time to decide, okay, I'm going to attack the minion. Well, with the first strike on there, the minion gets to attack first. So this Dark Panther gets to attack before the hero gets to do their attack phase. So we drew this Lizard Mage out. Let's set up for the Lizard Mage. The Lizard Mage starts at a health of 10. So I set the health tracker to 10 and 2 combat points. So I have a minion out here. I have to attack that minion. I have to encounter that minion. So the Gunslinger will take their normal turn and roll their dice and do whatever they would want to do with their dice. So I just happened to roll. I'm going to gain an evasion. Oh, in the beginning of my turn, I would take my passive upkeep. So I got a reload, and I just got an evasion. And I'm doing 5 defendable damage to the Lizard Mage. The Lizard Mage is supposed to roll 3 dice. They got 2 stars in this claw slash marks for their defense. If they get any of the slash marks, they gain chaos tokens. So they gain 2 chaos tokens, and then they deal 1 undefendable damage for each chaos token back to the Gunslinger. So the Gunslinger took 2 damage. Now, I do have an evade. So, and we know how to play these characters, but I do have this evade token. It is undefendable damage, but I could use my evade token. I would be able to roll a dice, and if I rolled a 1 or a 2, I could evade some of that damage, but I'm not going to do that right now. We'll just leave it that the Gunslinger took 2. Now it would be the Lizard Mage's turn to retaliate. So the Lizard Mage has got, at the bottom of their card, they've got their role objective. Every minion card has a role objective at the bottom of the card. So that role objective is what we're going to try to roll for. They roll just like a normal character does. So I'm going to roll their 5 chaos dice. And their role objective, they're looking for these stars and these, the best I can call it is a burning dice. Here's the, well, if you have the game, you know what these dice faces are. But there's the 3 dice. There's the 3 different dice faces. So I'm setting aside one of the swirls and one of the burning dice, and I'm going to re-roll these dice. And I got another one of the swirls, and I'm done. I don't need to do any more. I got that roll of those 3 dice. I roll 1 more dice for the Lizard Mage, and it says that on a slash like this, the Lizard Mage gains 2 more chaos tokens. If it was a star, they would have inflicted a blind, but it wasn't a star. And so they deal 6 damage plus 1 damage for each one of the chaos tokens. So this is a level 1 guy, and right out of the bat, he's doing 10 damage to me, plus the 2 damage that he did to me earlier. So now the Serpent Sorcery thing from the Lizard Mage is doing 10 damage to the Gunslinger, and the Gunslinger is already at 16. So I rolled the dice for the duel, the way that the Gunslinger's defensive dice works. I wound up winning that duel, and I do 3 undefendable damage to the Lizard Mage, which, since I had done 5 before that they didn't block, and now these 3 they're down. The lizard mage is down to 2 health, but all 10 of that damage is coming at the gunslinger. So now the gunslinger's down to 6 health. This is avoidable. Instead of taking that 10 damage, I would use my evasion and see if I can roll. I rolled a 6, so I didn't evade it anyway, and I'm taking 10 damage. The gunslinger's at 6 health after the first encounter. So kind of gives you an idea how difficult some of these minions are. So that would have been the gunslinger's turn. Let's say the barbarian isn't going to help the gunslinger out. They're saying, oh, there's only 2 health left on that one. I'm going to move on. So I'm moving on, and I'm going to go take the next tile up here. I would get 1 combat point. I would get 1, and another level 1 minion would come out. All heroes have to choose and discard half of their cards and then draw back 3 cards. That's not so bad. Both characters would have to do that. Then the barbarian would go fight this one, 12, and gets 2 combat points. So the barbarian would fight, and then the gunslinger would come back in because they're encountered. So let's do the gunslinger's turn again. Since they're already in an encounter, they would have to do the second half of this, so they could spend a salve to heal themselves back up. They're only at 6 hit points out of their starting 18, so they're below half. But I'm not going to do that because those salves are important, but we'll see how things go. Then I would look to see if they have a first strike, which this card doesn't have a first strike. So we would go take the gunslinger's turn. On the gunslinger's turn, they would do their normal turn. I've rolled their dice. They now have take cover. They're going to get an evasive token. And then they're going to do 5 defendable damage to the lizard mage this time. So the lizard mage gets to roll their defense dice. They roll 2 more asterisks. So they get 2 more chaos. And look at that. Well, wait, no. Take that. Yeah, they would get to defend, right? So they get to defend. They're dead because they took 5 damage. So this character is dead. But they killed the gunslinger. So the gunslinger is at 0 health because there's 6 chaos tokens on them. And it says that they deal 1 damage for each chaos token. You can see how difficult the game can be. Anyway, we've killed this mage lizard. The mage lizard is kind of a tough one. If you look at the next one that I've gotten out here, if you roll the 2 6s, they will do 4 undefendable damage. In addition, they have to choose a teammate to take 2 more collateral damage. And then they must discard a random card. Her defensive roll, if she rolls, she's got 2 dice. On every 6 she rolls, she blocks 3 of those damage. So doesn't have the ramping up of the lizard mage that we just attacked in this first one. So that lizard mage was a fairly tough guy. Anyway, so now we've killed that lizard mage. The lizard mage would give us 1 green loot again. So just like we did the last time, we'd roll our loot dice. I rolled a 12. A 12 on the loot dice says I get 1 more gold. So we're now at 15 gold. If when the barbarian finishes their encounter against the melodic maiden is actually a blue. So when you beat her, you get a blue loot. So the barbarian, let's say the barbarian rolls an 11. On the blue one, the barbarian got 1 more gold, so we're now at 16. No cards are still coming out. So we do this back and forth like that, and you explore tiles, and you do what the tiles tell you to do until you get to a room that you now get a shard from. So you can see that during the move in the top half and the move here, if the barbarian was back here because they were still fighting their minion for whatever reason, on the barbarian's move turn, the barbarian would be able to move all the way up to here and help the gunslinger with somebody if the gunslinger fighting somebody, or they could go to one of these 2 unexplored tiles. So the barbarian could go all the way up to there and explore this one. You get the salve if you explore this tile. These two, you get the blue chests for exploring them. So when you take the blue chest tile off, you immediately go to your loot card and you roll your loot dice and try to figure out what you're supposed to get. You keep doing this, flipping over tiles and doing encounters until you've gotten all the portal shards. So you've explored enough, you've gotten all the portal shards on there. Once you've gotten all the portal shards on there, and then, like I was saying, you can move any explored tile all the way to the portal tile. So you'd move to the portal tile, you would get that salve that was sitting on there, and then you'd get 3 CP, 3 gold, and you would have to pull out a level 4 minion and fight it with 1 extra King's Hand dice. If at any point in time both characters are dead for whatever reasons, that's a loss condition. But that's the portal crawl. Okay, so we finished a portal crawl, and we're going to go on to the loot shop and the loot phase. The shop happens the same way if you were successful or unsuccessful in your conclusion. In this particular scenario, we're supposed to deal out 3 green cards. And 1 blue card. So we also ended the game with 26 gold. Might have been higher if we really played all the way through this, but we ended it with 26 gold. What we're supposed to do is round that up to by the closest 5. So instead of 26, we have 30 gold. And their suggestion is that you take and set your player's health tracker to 30, because that 30 is the gunslinger has 30 and the barbarian have 30. Both characters get that 30 to spend. So the card costs in the shop, the green cards cost 10, common cards cost 10, the rare cards cost 15. If we had an epic, which is a purple one, they cost 20, and if you have a legendary, they cost 25. So you you could go buy cards and pay the gold amount on the card, or what the card is worth, and you'd take that off of your health tracker to say that's the gold that I've spent. Once you get to 0, you spent all your gold. You can't buy anything else. So let's talk about a few scenarios here. This is 15, but Transcend is 15 because it's a blue card. It's rare. But if I happen to have Transcend 2, this is Transcend 3, if I happen to have Transcend 2 in my deck already, then I would have to turn in the Transcend 2. So I turn in my Transcend 2, and I would only have to pay 5 for the Transcend 3, because I already have I had a Transcend 2. So that's buying cards. Cards that I got from the loot boxes that are upside down, I'd have to pay 10 gold to identify them. So let's just say I paid the 10 gold to identify this one, which is Life Funnel. But let's just say I happen to have Life Funnel 2 in my deck already from a prior mission. So I already had Life Funnel 2 in there, and the one I just identified was Life Funnel 1. Well, I can't put Life Funnel 1 in my deck, so what I would do, take a new one off the top of the green pile. But I would have paid 10 to identify that, so I'm down to 15 gold because I paid 5 for the Transcend 2, and I paid 10 to identify one of these cards. So I'm down to 15. So let me pay 10 to identify this card, which is Golden Rule 2. And now I'm down to 5 gold. Well, I only have 5, so I can't identify this one because I've only got 5 gold, and it costs 10 gold to identify this. So I can sell this one without looking at it and get 5 gold for that. So that puts me back up to 10 gold. And so now I have 10 gold and I can buy one of these cards. Now, the Barbarian and I have been going back and forth, buying cards back and forth, but I would have 10 gold left to be able to buy one of these cards. And so just real quick refresher, green cards cost 10, the blue cards cost 15. When you get to the epic purple cards, they cost 20, and the legendary cost 25. You can tell that these cards are not from the normal deck because they have that epic or common or whatever coloring on the bottom. So you can tell that they're not from the normal deck. So if you need to pull them out to play a game, a normal game with somebody, and you're not playing an adventure game, you don't want to leave these cards in. There is a deck size limit. Your deck isn't allowed to get any bigger than 50 cards. So if your deck gets past the 50 card mark, you have to start looking through your deck and deciding which cards you're going to take out and remove from your deck for when you're playing adventures, the next scenario in adventure. And for this case, the next scenario would be a boss fight. That's how you deal with the loot cards and the shop. Final thoughts for the portal crawl or the dungeon. As you saw when I was playing, it can be a little difficult to get through the portal crawl. I did recheck, and that lizard mage that had the 6 tokens on it that was doing 6 damage, best I can tell, that is the right way to handle that. Max token count is 6, but those were supposed to stay, and that lizard was going to do 6 damage every time. So you got to get rid of it fast. And like I was saying during the video, some of the other ones are not so difficult. But that was a green level 1 character. They get worse as it goes up. The other strategy that I was reading was those are status effects. So if you happen to have a card that says remove status effects or something like that, you could do that against those. So that would be one strategy to get rid of those. I do like the fact that you're using the Dice Thrones characters. That gives you somebody that's got some unique abilities, and all our characters aren't exactly the same. You can almost get a MMO kind of a flavor out of it, where you have that trilogy, you know, the tank, the healer, and the DPS. You can almost get that. You really don't have a tank, but you can have a healer running around that will heal other players. The reason why I normally like dungeon crawls is that it gives you that RPG kind of feel without all the commitment of a long RPG campaign. And this one is kind of in the middle there. It's not a one shot where I can get the whole dungeon crawl done in one sitting. It's more of a, I've got to do 8 sittings to get through the whole thing, but that's okay. The dungeon crawls themselves take somewhere between an hour to 2. The boss fights take an hour or less. So, you know, you've got a 8-hour commitment to a maybe 12 to 14-hour commitment, depending upon how long it takes to get through some of the portal crawls. If that's not for you, then okay, you know that in advance. You don't have to play it that way. You can play just scenarios, but playing the third scenario, which is the second dungeon crawl, faster than getting all your loot, it makes it very difficult. I did show you that you can put the cards that come from Dice Thrones Adventures off to the side in your box so that you can still play those characters if you want to go back and play the character without playing Adventures. And then the next time you come back to Adventures, you can bring the character and put those cards back in your deck. So as always, these videos are not sponsored. All the opinions in here are my opinions and Jerry's opinions only. Take that with however you want to take that. I appreciate your time. And if you would like or subscribe to this channel, I would appreciate that too. I'll see you in the boss fight, I hope. See you then. Bye.